Hey everybody, it's the Black Powder Beginner. Welcome to another episode of Percussion Discussions. And here we are back at the table. If you saw my last video, you know that range day 2, the Dragoon, third model Dragoon, did not fire. And I know you're asking yourself, just like I was asking, why wouldn't it fire? Well, I went through all of the whole thought processes behind it. The caps were no good. The hammer and hammer spring, the main spring were no good. The and a whole host of thought processes. But I was sitting here and I said, you know what? Let me just take a look. So I looked and I looked and finally it hit me. If you could see this right here, I believe you can. These are the nipples. These are the nipples that I put in the muzzle loaders version of the slick shot nipples, which I do have in my Remington new model army target, and they work just fine. They work well. So I said, well, let me put them in the Dragoon as well. Well, the problem with that is the the nipples are too short. The nipples are too short. You kind of can see side by side. They are about a quarter-inch too short, and that's why the hammer wasn't contacting the percussion caps like they were supposed to. So when I took them out, in actuality, let me just be 100 with you, which is, let me just be honest. I put these in, I put these, and I believe that the thread was the wrong type of thread. And quite honestly, I know it was the wrong type of thread because these threads, there doesn't seem to be a difference. But when I put the old nipples back in, I had a time. I had a hard time putting them back in. So basically, what I ended up doing was cutting the threads to match the factory nipples again after I cut them the first time to match these nipples. So at the end of the day, I didn't so much damage the cylinder, but I did damage the threads slightly. So with that being said, the the nipples didn't go back. The factory nipples did not go back in there easy. And when I was there at the range, I was saying to myself, what's wrong? I put the 1860 Army nipples into this cylinder, and it still wouldn't fire because not all nipples, and this is a lesson for myself and for anybody else watching. Not all nipples are created equal. There are different lengths, and I'm not talking about just the thread lengths. I'm talking about the length of the cone itself. Those lengths are different. Those lengths are actually different. The Dragoon, and I assume that the Walker is the same. These nipples are slightly longer than the 1860 Army, the 1851 Navy, and probably the Remington New Model Army. I'm sure they're longer than that. They're longer than those. So I believe that they're in a class of their own. The Walkers and Dragoons are in a class of their own, not only when it comes to the design of them, as far as how big of a firearm or revolver they are, but also with the nipples. You can't just interchange the nipples. So Another valuable lesson learned. And so now when I do, at the point where I do need to maybe switch out the nipples, I will order the nipples that go for this. I'm not going to try to get any slick shot nipples or anything like that. I'm just going to get the nipples that go for this firearm and leave it at that. So you see me putting the nipple back in, and it is I have to put some force behind. Now I've pulled them out and put them back in just to kind of make sure the threads are cut, but I have to put some force behind the nipple to make sure that it's in there. And actually, this one, well, they seem to be all down in there like they're supposed to be. So I have a set of nipples that I can probably put in the 1860 Army. I know they'll go into the Remingtons because there's a set in there already. So with that being said, what I've also done since I was fooling around with it, I've also done the Blackie Thomas fix with the nipples and have cut a little trough because it works so well with the 1860 Army that I'm going to give it a shot with these here, and I might, maybe it wasn't a good idea, but I got to try. I got to try. So I don't know if the light is hitting it, but where I'm from my vantage point, I can see where the light is kind of hitting where I etched. And I know you're not supposed to use a Dremel, but I did. I did. I was very light-handed with it. I used the Dremel, and it was just because it's faster and it's more complete. Like I can really see the trough that I cut in, and it worked. Like I said, it worked with the 1860 Army. No cap jams. My last range day video, if you saw it, you saw that I fired the 1860 Army easy, no cap jams or anything. So so I did do that. And there was one more thing, and I was planning on doing a video replacing the mainspring in the grip. And I just decided, you know what, since it doesn't need a mainspring, the mainspring was not the problem. I'll just keep that mainspring just in case, and I'll leave the factory mainspring in the handle that's in here because it it seems the action seems to work fairly well. So it wasn't. I thought it was a weak mainspring. It was not. That was not the problem. It was the nipples themselves. So with that being said, I said, well, since I got the Dremel tool out, I had an issue with fitting 457 conical bullets into the loading dock, the loading area. Well, because I was being industrious and was just tooling around, I measured it out and I have altered the loading dock with the Dremel. I didn't hog off a lot of metal, but I did kind of take it down a little bit. And you old hands that have done this stuff and you see this, please don't judge me too harshly. Oh, you took a little bit too much metal off. Oh, yeah, this and that. Because I've never done this before. Just another one of those never done this before type maneuvers. So I just put it down to where I was hoping it was flat and even so that the conical would just slide in. It's got, and I actually took a little bit off the loading lever inside of here as well because the loading lever was kind of blocking the area. So You can see that I took a little notch out of the loading lever as well. And so it's flush. It's all flush, so it should go right in. The conicals should go right in, and they do. They do. I did test it out, and it goes right in, and there's no issues with it at all. And what I used was a carbine tip and the Dremel, and and I just lightly kind of I marked off the area where the bullet was touching, where the conical was touching, and I marked it. I took a little um, just a little file, a little piece of file, and I just etched it while the bullet was sitting in. I just etched it right there, and then where the etch was, I just lightly took it down and kind of tried to make it even as possible. And as you can see, I left this little edge right here, but everything else I took down and kind of just smoothed and evened it out, and it worked well. It worked well. So with that being said, the new nipples are back in. Oh, well, might want to do this first. Well, the old nipples are back in, and and the and the loading gate has been the loading gate has been altered a little bit. And something else I realized, I figured out when it comes to these firearms is that now you see how it's spinning. You hear it clicking, you see it spinning. Now just watch this. Something that I didn't know. You put that wedge in a little bit too far, it won't turn. It will barely turn. You have to do your hand like this and kind of work it past the forcing cone. But so I tend to kind of take it back just a little bit, and I want to make sure that there's no play. You can't move it front to back, and there you go. So that is the change and the difference. And I tested it, which you know what, I know this is something my dog is gonna have a fit, but we're gonna test it right now so you can see it. I do this for the content, people. I do it for the content. The nipples turn. There you go. Fire like a champ. And you can see fire, boom, fire, boom, fire, boom. And there, the cap is right there. There's the fired cap, if you can see that, inside the action, but it's not jamming. Well, it spoke too soon. Spoke too soon. Oh, no, I didn't. Well, nope, it's still turning. But there's the cap. So And take something, but you, as you see, it rotated, and then it popped right out, and there it is. Fire cap. I had to take something to work it out of there, but while it was still in the action, it was not blocking the action. I was still able to cock, and the cylinder still turned. So there you go. I actually did the fix, figured it out. Um, Kind of altered the loading dock so that, and I probably need to take a little bit off this edge right here just to kind of make it really, really smooth. But I'll do that in a little bit. I might take a um, sandpaper carbide and just kind of rub that down. You know what? As a matter of fact, while I was sitting here, well, I'm not gonna put you through all of that. Maybe I could just, I don't have any loose sandpaper, which I should get some just for these types of occasions, but just to kind of take that down just like that. And I will. But I think I did a pretty good job of kind of rounding out the edges so it doesn't snag as the bullet goes in. So that there is the fix. That's the fix. Something very simple. So once again, lesson learned. Not all, when you are replacing your nipples, you have to make sure that you get the right nipples for the right gun. These slick shots or these muzzle loader version of slick shots, they're great nipples. They work, but they just don't work in something as large as the Dragoon third model or third model Dragoon. It's just the cylinder is too big. The nipples need to be as big so that there was not any issues with it. And there you go. All right. So I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. I'm the Black Powder Beginner. And like I said, I'll see you next time.